Madam President, dear colleagues, and to our wonderful Spanish hosts, good evening. I'm going to start with the words of Winston Churchill in 1947. He said, "Many forms of government have been tried and will be tried in this world of sin and woe. No one pretends that democracy is perfect or all-wise. Indeed, it has been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time." I believe passionately in democracy. It's the best way to achieve progress for humanity. But democratic freedom is facing contemporary challenges everywhere. The first key test for democracy is that every vote must count. Everyone who is eligible must be able to vote, and everyone should have the opportunity to either be a candidate, to hear from a range of candidates, and all of those candidates must be free to address and express and campaign for their beliefs without internal repression, without interference from external actors. The second key test is that any election or referendum must mean that you can change the government or the constitution. An electoral system that doesn't allow a citizen to vote for change will never elect a government that will respond properly to the citizen. The third key test for democracy is that the losers must respect the outcome of the election, and there must be a peaceful transition of power. Over the last year, particularly in the pandemic, we have seen all three tests challenged. In my country, one of the oldest and most established democracies, we had to skip local elections because of the pandemic, handing a free term of government to many councillors and to many mayors. In so many countries, the pandemic has delayed already long delayed elections, and this has suited those in power. We've all heard stories, and we've heard them today from this podium, of voter suppression, false stories on social media, targeting those whose voices need to be heard the most. And we have learned that social media algorithms put much greater weight on the loudest, on the crossest voices. This fosters division. Imagine if you, Madam President, only allowed people to speak to this podium who have the loudest voices or the crossest messages to convey. And just this January, in the great American democracy, a democracy that we all in the IPU wish to see return to our organisation, we all witnessed with our own eyes an incumbent who refused to accept the outcome of an election and stood by while a mob stormed Congress. Elected congressmen and women had to hide in fear of their lives. Losers' consent and the peaceful transition of power have never seemed so fragile. Meanwhile, in many newer democracies, we've seen military coups, parliaments suspended indefinitely, falsified election results. This is particularly obvious in our near neighbourhood in Belarus. Democracy matters because without democracy, citizens are not free. Without lawmakers chosen by the people, we can live in a society with laws that do not have the consent of those governed. This has been particularly important in the pandemic, and I've campaigned in my parliament for us to be informed, to have the opportunity to vote on the restrictions so that they have the democratic support of the people. And thanks to that democratic debate and engagement, I am hoping that my country could be one of the first in the world to emerge with our freedoms and with vaccinations protecting our citizens from the worst of COVID-19. And of course, Madam President, through COVAX, through the World Health Organization, through CEPI, through Gavi, which the United Kingdom is so proud to be a funder of. We will be as generous as we possibly can be with the gift of vaccinations to the world's poorest. I conclude, Madam President, with the wise words of the 17th century political philosopher John Locke. He said, "The goal of law is not to abolish or restrain, but to preserve and enlarge freedom. For in all the states of created beings capable of laws, where there is no law, there is no freedom." And dear colleagues, this conference dedicates itself to the idea that law must come from freely and democratically elected politicians. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Portugal.